If you're like me, you're sending hundreds, if not thousands of emails per day to try to land leads or backlinks for your own business or for your clients' businesses. Now, there's an issue with that. Most people that are doing cold email outreach in 2026 are still stuck in a 2022 or 2023 mindset. They're trying to scale volume. They're firing off hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of emails per day to try to land backlinks for SEO. And then they get surprised when their domain gets blacklisted after just a few days. So what has changed between then and now? Well, what's changed is the inbox. Editors these days are receiving countless emails. They're inundated with different pitches, and they're busier than ever trying to filter through all these emails that they're getting in their inbox. So that's happening at increasing volume nowadays, especially as the tools scale up and AI gets better. The amount of volume that's coming from all sorts of marketers is increasing. And so it's getting harder and harder for editors to filter that. It's harder for marketers to cut through that noise and stand out. So how do you stand out exactly? Well, the emails that actually make it through are the emails that feel like they're written for a specific person. People get lost in the weeds. Is it about the right subject line? It's about the length of the email. Is it about the formality? Should I use caps? Should I use lowercase to keep it casual? Is it the tone? It's really none of that. It's really the feeling that you are addressing the editor personally. So in this video, we're going to walk through some steps on how to set up your email inbox infrastructure to get through some of these filters, the technical filters, and then how to write emails in a way that cuts through the noise and lands to a human editor on their end that gets you these opportunities for backlinks or leads. Now, what we're sharing with you is the exact system that we're using at our agency, Blue Tree Digital, to get positive reply rates of 15 to 20%, which is almost 10x the industry average. So we're going to walk through this step by step in this video. Now, before you write a single word for your emails, the outreach copy, make sure that you have your infrastructure set up properly out of the gate, or even the most beautifully eloquent personalized emails will not land properly. So it's really important that you do not skip this part. The first rule when setting up your infrastructure is that you never send emails from your main domain. It's very important because you only have one business domain. It's your main domain. And if you burn it, if you get it blacklisted, they can go directly to spam, and that can really cause a lot of friction in the business. So make sure that you're sending emails from other domains. If our agency is Blue Tree Digital and our main domain is bluetree.digital, well, we want some variations of that. We could get bluetreedigital.com, bluetreedigital.net, bluetree-digital.com, bluetreedigital.agency. There's a lot of variations you can come up with. Now, of course, there's an issue with any of those domains. If for whatever reason you run into a bunch of Karens at some business and they all decide to, a flash mob mark your emails as spam, well, that small domain that you have, that's going to be the one that is marked as non-compliant and have a higher risk of being blacklisted by these spam filters, whereas the main domain stays clean and has no issues. On that secondary domain, before sending anything, configure the SPF, the DKIM, the DMARC properly. Without them, you're essentially invisible to the recipients, even if you have the best emails, even if you have the best enterprise platform, Microsoft, Google, etc. If you don't set those up properly, you're probably not going to be making it through to your target list. So regardless of what email service provider you use for your inboxes, every platform has very clear instructions for how to set these up. So we'll drop some links in the description below. The steps are actually straightforward, so don't freak out. It's not that difficult. And again, it's very important not to skip this step. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes, but saves you a ton of headache and time later on when you're wondering, why am I not getting positive responses?
Why, God, why?
A lot of people ask, how many email boxes should I set up per domain? I think a rule of thumb is, depending on the niche you're in, if it's a very aggressive niche that's known to trigger spam filters, even as low as one email per domain can be good. I'd say 1 or 2 is probably on the lower end for those sort of more aggressive niches. A standard is really like 3 to 5 inboxes per domain. Some people flex up to more than that, 7 to 10, but I think 3 to 5 is the sweet spot. If it's your first time setting up a campaign, start with 3. And then importantly, you want to warm up inboxes for a few weeks. This sounds really silly, but once you set this up, it's probably the most important step for cold email outreach, to have healthy inboxes before you start sending, because surprisingly, 80% of the people that do cold email, they just skip this step and they just rapidly set up a bunch of spammy free email inboxes. So to warm up inboxes, you can, if you're using a tool like Instantly, I think Zapmail has similar warm-up features, or there's dedicated warm-up solutions that you can use that will do the sending, but you really don't need to stress about this. Actually, one simple way to do it is just ask, you can Google it or just ask ChatGPT or any AI to give you a list of common support inboxes for lots of big businesses, lots of tech support. And then every day just log on, and it takes you like less than a minute, write an email that sounds professional, like a concerned customer to each of these. The important thing is that you warm them up for 2 to 3 weeks before you start actually sending automated emails cold. Last point here on the setup, a lot of people wonder how many emails should I send per day, per inbox. You can always, no matter what niche you're in, no matter how competitive it is or how weird of a thing it is that you're selling or pitching, you can always start slow, monitor the data, make sure you're getting positive responses, and then ramp up later. So don't worry about getting the exact number right. It's more about having a disciplined, clean setup and then ramping from there. Now, that said, the quality of your list really determines the ceiling on the number of emails you can send. It's really important that you have a clean, enriched email list before you start sending emails, particularly if you're using an automated tool. At the end of the day, the best outreach system in the world cannot rescue a bad list. So this is where you need to invest your time. I remember years ago, we were working with a mega affiliate. They wanted to send 400,000 emails per day in the telecom and ISP vertical in the US. And they kept saying, hey, it doesn't really matter. 400,000 emails per day. How many people do you have, right? But they were testing so many emails that with the thought that, hey, we're cool if they don't work. We're cool if these are bad emails, but not realizing that, the 5% or the 2% or the 10% of that list that was good, they weren't even getting hit because there were so many emails on the list that bounced that it was basically ruining the whole system. So the list is really important. It does determine sort of what the ceiling is on the volume that you can send. So when it comes to SEO, what kind of list should we be building? What kind of list should we look for? Well, for most campaigns, we target DR30, that's domain rating and Ahrefs, domain rating 30 to 80 sites. But we don't always rely on just DR. It's important to validate as well for the real organic traffic that a site has. Of course, if a site has a lot of traffic, but it's not organic, then SEO may not be a big component. Some sites, all their traffic is paid, right? That's not something we really want to rely on. So again, you want to look at number 1, DR, and number 2, the organic traffic, the verified organic traffic in Ahrefs. Those are usually pretty reliable metrics. If you want to double check in something else like SEMrush, that can work too, but Ahrefs still to this day and has for almost a decade has the best SEO data in the industry, so it's pretty reliable. Another thing we look at is we want to observe a traffic trend. If a site had, say, hundreds of thousands or millions of traffic for years, then it started to decline and slowly decayed, and it's decaying almost like on consistent decay, or it had a really sharp drop and has been low for a while and never really recovered. That's a really bad sign. Of course, a drop, as SEOs we know, usually indicates some sort of Google penalty, and a steady, slow decay means that the site isn't doing something right enough to stay relevant in Google. So it doesn't have to be flat. It doesn't have to even be growing. It could just be kind of stable or slightly down. That's totally fine. Of course, growing is nice. Flat, it's okay. But you just want to avoid stuff. And this is where sort of using your own common sense to look at the organic traffic trend really helps. There's no right or wrong answer. You just want to avoid sites that could be a risk to a backlink profile because they themselves have a penalty. You want to carry that penalty through the backlink. The other thing to consider is once you've organized a big list of sites in your niche or your client's niche, that you want to look for sites that are regularly publishing. This is really easy, but you have to manually check the site, because if the last blog post or last news article that a site published was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago or more, that site isn't publishing fresh content. Of course, that's a signal to Google that the site isn't that fresh. If they start publishing stuff that has backlinks to your business or your client's business, that could be a liability rather than a good link. Okay, so what type of sites are you actually looking for? Most SEOs build lists of editorial sites, editors at these sites to try to land links via guest posts, sites that recently linked to competitors, broken links, resource pages links, etc. These are pages that are usually primed for a replacement link if you say the right thing. You're helping the other site, you're helping that editor find an issue with their site, and you're coming in, and if your resource is genuinely good, of course, if you don't have anything of value to offer other than telling them they have a broken link, many editors are happy to say, thanks for the fix, but yeah, we're not going to link to you guys. But if you're offering the fix and you have something valuable, if it's not the best resource in the world, they're going to be more likely to add your link there. Now, an important thing when you're building the list is to segment the warm and cold prospects differently, right? Because the pitch sequence you use, the email pitch sequence you use is going to be different if you're targeting warm leads who you've worked with in the past, giving you a link in the past versus cold leads. A warm lead can be any number of lists, and you can really get granular with this, but if you're trying to build links, then a warm contact is just someone that you have a pre-existing email conversation with, who you worked with in the past, they're much more likely to respond and give you another link, and give you another opportunity. If you're mixing the list between warm and cold, imagine if all your close friends, every time you greeted them, you greeted them like a total stranger. It would be very off base. So it's really important to segment them to optimize your reply rate. Now, if it's not a warm contact, if it's a cold contact and you're building prospect list to reach out to cold, who should you be looking for? Well, of course, you want to look for editors. Anyone who self-describes them as a website editor usually has access to editorial function at that website. For smaller sites, the site owner, content manager, content director, those are all titles you can look for. And you can find these on the site themselves if there's an about page and they have a team, or you can look for the website or the business that owns the website, usually in the link to in the terms of service or the contact on the website. Sometimes it's a different name. You find them on LinkedIn, then you can start to use tools to find their email address and then reach out directly from there. So quick break. We do this every day, all day, every day. We do it for many different niches, many different verticals. We're really good at doing cold email outreach in B2B niches specifically. And we've got a lot of secret sauce that we use internally. And I know this is a lot of information for people that might be doing cold email for the first time. If you want us to take a look at what you're doing from a cold email perspective or just an SEO perspective, we're really happy to audit your setup and audit your systems and take a look at it absolutely for free. Just check out the link in the description below. Our website is bluetree.digital. Again, that's a free audit. No strings attached. We're happy to look at your system and see what's working and what's not and help you get on the right track. Now, I want to pause quickly and say thanks for watching so far. We're looking forward to sharing a lot more of these guides, super in-depth tactical guides of what's really working in SEO and AI right now for us. So if you like these guides and you want to get more of them, please hit subscribe. We'd love to continue to have you follow along our guides on this channel, and it really helps us grow the channel. So thank you for supporting us, and we're looking forward to sharing more of these videos. We'll be dropping a new video every week with these in-depth marketing breakdowns. Now let's talk about the copy. Most AI generated outreach is just too polite and too long. It uses weirdly flowery language that kind of makes you feel like human, but not quite human. Now, we've cut our emails at Bluetree down to typically under 150 words or less. Again, this is not a hard set rule, but shorter tends to be better. It honors the person's, it shows that you're honoring their attention span, and it does allow for a sort of cadence with the recipient for them to reply faster if your email does land. What about subject lines? Typically, specific subject lines outperform clever ones. Don't try to get too clever. Just make it specific. It doesn't have to be super personalized, but specificity will outperform cleverness in the subject line. You're just trying to get them to open them. The hook sentence, once they've opened, the hook sentence is the important part. This has to be done manually, and it helps. You can have the rest of the email templated, but you have to make a space for a manually written, personalized hook sentence, because if it's done properly, the rest of the email is going to be flowing very easily in the mind of the subject, and they're very, very likely to reply. So it's important. You can use AI to help you with notes or with ideas or with filler for the hook sentence that is specific to the target, but the final sign off should still be done manually for the hook sentence. Don't use merge tags in the hook sentence, very important. So what do you do? It's what you don't do is using AI. You need to do it manually, but what do you include in the hook sentence? One simple little trick that we use at Bluetree is to mention, say, a content gap or reference a recent article or group of articles that they wrote about on their site, and then add a suggestion, maybe from an SEO perspective, maybe from a visual perspective of something they could have done better that isn't antagonistic in any way. It's not putting them down in any way, but it demonstrates that you are an authority on what you're talking about that actually genuinely would help them. You're giving value out of the gate and you're demonstrating authority. That's going to increase the likelihood that you get a response. So how would this work in practice? You can mention a content gap in a recent article and open with a simple one sentence, one liner that proves that you read their site. Subject line, your article on topic, quick thought, or name, John, your article on topic, here's a quick thought. Has very high open rates. That simple subject line outperforms anything generic that we've tried internally by a long shot. So feel free to steal it. We're not going to share all of our subject lines. Again, unless you want an audit, then we're happy to discuss those more. But again, name, your article on topic, your post on topic, your latest report on topic. Here's a quick thought. Here's a suggestion. One thing you missed, one thing you may have missed. Again, you want to get them intrigued not defensive. It's almost impossible for someone who's an editor to not open that. And once they open the email and you get into the hook, reference their site name and a specific article title, mention a piece of data they could include that you are offering. Then don't ask for the link, but offer the value that will then convert into the link. Lead with value, and then assume and trust that if you're offering value, it's going to lead to the link on the back end. Use a very low friction CTA, like happy if I send it over, or would you like to take a look, or is it cool if I send it over and see if it fits? Something like that. That's where you can be a little bit more casual with the CTA. The important thing is that you get straight to the point and avoid anything that reads like a template, because editors, again, see hundreds, if not thousands of outreach emails a week, and they'll close yours before the body even loads if it reads like AI or it reads like a template. Now, here's an important point. 70% or more of the positive responses we get at Blue Tree Digital come after the first follow-up, not the first email. So it's important that your sequence is dialed in and not just the original email copy, the entire sequence. And if you're just sending one email, you're literally wasting your time and money. And not only that, you're burning your reputation in the process. So you really have to make sure that the entire sequence is dialed in. So what do? Here's a sequence. Day one is your initial email. Here's your pitch. Here's your introduction. Make it casual, make it formal. Don't sell anything, offer value. Day 4 is your bump. This is your first follow-up. 2 sentences is all you really need. A very casual, hey, making sure you got this, but with a little more oomph, making sure you saw this, what it is that you're offering. Because again, making sure you saw this value is a lot better than just saying, hey, making sure you saw this. That's just a simple nudge. Happy to answer questions, happy to share more. You're just nudging the first email in case they really did miss it or they just were busy. Okay, so now you've sent the first pitch. Day 4, you send the follow-up, the nudge. Day 9 is when you add something new. You're contributing something additional to the conversation. So you're acting as if they saw it, but just kind of reminding them with a gentle nudge, a friendly nudge, so they take another look at the original email and maybe do a little bit more research and background check on who you are and what you're really offering. Also keep in mind with the nudge, this is a good opportunity to add another stat from another article that they may have published recently. So again, this second follow-up should feel like a continuation of the conversation, not a new pitch. Even though you're adding more value to the conversation, it's not a new conversation entirely. You're again just continuing the conversation of a pitch sequence that you've already had. We do just 4 emails per pitch for SEO. So day 14 is the breakup email. Now you can get pretty creative with this. We just say, hey, something short, no pressure if this wasn't a good fit. The thing is nowadays, so many people do the breakup email that they're likely to just archive, delete, mute, block. Sometimes it helps to add a little bit of comedy. You can throw a little joke in there, and the joke itself shows, hey, these guys are good at outreach. They're humans. They know what they're doing. And if they can do it well for themselves, they can probably do it well for us as well. So keep that in mind. Never lose an opportunity to, when you have the attention of a potential prospect, to add some value, and humor can go a long way. Now, keep in mind, a reply still requires a lot of mental energy for people. They maybe want to continue the conversation, but they don't want to commit. They maybe want to check you guys out, but they don't have the time. Everyone's super busy. You can always send a breakup email, add humor if you want to, but then give them a link of where they can check you out, where they can book a meeting, see more about you, see some of the results you've done, maybe send a case study. That way you have one final opportunity to provide some sort of social proof that might get them to reply. One final thing that a lot of cold email people don't do because they're solely focused myopically on email is don't be afraid to go to another channel. Whoever you're reaching out to, have your team look for where are they most active on social media. Is it X? Is it LinkedIn? Is it YouTube? Go to their recent content, especially if it's X or LinkedIn, engage with it, offer value there as a reply, and really get on their radar in another channel, another media where they're really active. That's going to really increase the response rate of that final breakup email when they finally do see it. They're going to say, hey, wait a second, I saw this person somewhere else. Something about this stands out now. Let me take the time to reply. Lastly, after day 14, email is sent. If you don't hear anything back in a few weeks, move that person to a re-engagement list. Your team went through the hassle of building the list, enriching the list. That can be used later at a later date. We usually do 6 months. We check back in, we check the list for health before we resend, but you've already gone through and found the contact. Don't just waste it. Just assume it's not going to work out. You don't want to burn the inbox by constantly emailing someone 5, 10, 15 times. For us, 4 is enough to really know whether or not they're going to respond. And 14 days, 2 weeks is plenty of time. So move them to a re-engagement list and set a reminder for 6 months down the line to try that list again. So what kind of results should you be expecting from cold email outreach? Well, let's take a look at some metrics and try to understand better what they're really telling you. Generally speaking, we like to shoot for open rates at a bare minimum 40%. Say 40 to 60% is a sweet spot, 50 give or take, basically. If you can get higher than that, 70%, 80% for new pitches, and then you can tweak that, try to improve it over time. Anything less than 40 probably needs a little bit of work in the subject line or the lists, or making sure that your emails and your inboxes and your domains are clean. And that's important because you don't want to go through all the hassle of rewriting your email until you've diagnosed what is causing the low open rates. All you really need to do here is check Google Postmaster tools for domain health and then test your subject lines in isolation. Separate positive reply rate from general reply rates. Neutral and negative responses just are going to pollute your signal. Positive reply rate, which is people that have expressed genuine interest, should sit anywhere from 5 to 15% for most people. Below 5% means that there's issue with the pitch. Assuming all other factors are being equal, you're gonna have to modify the pitch. 5 to 15%, 5% at least for a new campaign is what we really shoot for. And then we wanna make sure it gets up to 10, 15, and even 20% and beyond over time. In SEO, cold email outreach, the only really metric that really pays and the one that you should be optimizing for is the positive reply to landed live link. If people say yes to a pitch, but the link never goes live, the conversation goes dead, it was kind of a positive reply, but in name only, like they expressed interest and then never followed through. So the industry average rate for the positive reply to live link conversion is pretty high. Should be at least a third, but probably 30 to 50% is what you're looking for. But really, you want to aim for 100%, of course, but there's a lot of variables you can't control. But aim for at least 30%, 50% is probably ideal, but 50% and above is where you really want to shoot for. If you're below that, you have a follow-through problem, not an outreach problem, because you're getting people to reply positively, but the links aren't going live. You also want to track the time to publication, which is the length of time in between a positive reply and the live link. This should ideally be as fast as possible, but of course, a lot of editors have their own editorial timelines. They should usually tell you how long it's going to take, and it really depends on the site. If it's a bigger, more authoritative site, it might take weeks or months to publish. Sometimes we even have stuff go live years later, which is pretty crazy. I'd say aim for 30 days on average, assuming you're delivering the content fast. It's an important caveat. Keep in mind, this is all about relationship building, so a polite follow-up, a nice reply, a little nudge after you send the content. If you don't get reply back, that can really help towards getting the link live. Oftentimes, if you send content that doesn't meet their standards for whatever reason, it might take them more time and more energy to reply to you and tell you everything that's wrong with it than give you the cold shoulder. So sometimes you have to take the responsibility onto yourself and move the conversation forward until you really get that link live. So we've covered a lot of ground. It's important to say that this isn't just a campaign that you set and forget and hope that the tools are going to do all the heavy lifting for you. You're really building an outreach engine. Build the infrastructure properly, protect your domains, target properly, and treat editors and the people you're reaching out to like actual humans. This is how you win at cold outreach or SEO in 2026. So thanks again for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you guys next week for the next video. Peace.